Punk Rock Elite, a podcast about NOFX. Ding ding, time for round one of the punching.
For those of you listening, I've just walked across the ring dressed in a swimsuit, holding up a big number one.
It's Punk Rock Elite Podcast, a podcast about NOFX with them, Red Redmond.
It's me, Red Redmond, and
Eddie French, that's me. Hi.
That's you.
That was seamless. That was pure liquid podcasting. How are you doing, Red?
I'm very well, and I enjoyed that very subtle Alan Partridge reference.
Yes, well, that's how we do things around here, liquidly. Good. It's an album. It's two EPs today.
It is two EPs, two good EPs as well.
Two very different yet good EPs.
Really looking forward to getting stuck into this one. I think we have a really fun chat about these, and I think it's like a little bit of a deep dive for like the more weathered NOFX fans today.
Yes, this one we're talking about something that is. It's almost spoken about in hushed tones. You know what I mean? It's not like it's a secret, but there's a time when when someone goes, I've seen NOFX, saw the decline. Just add that one in. Whether it doesn't matter whether you saw them in people, because some bands go, I saw Bad Religion when they did a tiny club. I saw Rancid at Gilman Street. All this kind of stuff. No one really talks about when they saw NOFX in a small club, because let's face it, when they were playing the small clubs, there weren't that much to shout about as a live band.
Well, also, some people can't sit through a 2-minute NOFX song, let alone an 18-minute one.
That's true. This is sort of the insides of Guantanamo Bay for some people.
But before we get onto that, how are you, Eddie?
I'm all right, thanks. Yes, forgive me if my voice is a little crackly. I'm gonna shout out the promoter who gave me the gig. I did a gig last night for Silky, Paul Silky White. Paul Silky White is another baby. She's gone tomorrow.
Nice. I recently found out that a comedian I'm gigging with next month, Ori Styler, fits perfectly into Holy Diver.
Nice.
Ori Styler.
That's pretty good. So Silky actually fits into 2 Ace of Base songs. So you can go, Paul, Silky White, it opened up my eyes.
Good.
Yeah. So Paul Silky White.
Have you heard the theory that Ace of Base are secretly Nazis?
Yes, I've read that article about how one of them was very much in the white power movement and was in like a sort of power violence, like a far right sort of skinhead band.
Well, apparently, the Ace of Base is named after the base of Aces, which was a Nazi submarine base.
Oh, it's possible, and also, all that she wants is another baby. She's gone tomorrow is apparently about like welfare.
Yeah,
people having children just to get welfare money. I mean, the band have denied it.
I read that they have been like, yeah, we believe some. They sort of bad brainsed it. They were like, we used to be awful.
Right.
people.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Who knows?
Back when we were merely 30, we used to think these wacky things. I think Bad Brains held their unpleasant views when they were like 19, 20. So, and anyway, that's for another time. But yes, Silky runs a comedy company called Kill for a Seat. If you ever are near a Kill for a Seat gig, do go, because it'll be brilliant. It'll be really, really good.
Like one of those local comedy promoters who's just, an all-round good egg.
You'll find him in. He'll be mentioned in various comedian biographies, autobiographies, and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
People mention Silky. His name pops up every so often. He'll get a text saying, "Oh, Alan Carr mentioned you in his autobiography," and he goes, "Yes, well, I'd hope he would. I gave him a load of gigs." No, he didn't say that. He's not that ungracious a man. He's a very gracious man. But yeah, that was fun. He does in Meanwood in North Leeds. he does a music and comedy night where the acts are encouraged to do non-comedic songs as well as their comedy stuff. So I did two actually directly as a result of the last episode that we put out.
Oh, cool.
With Frank Turner. I did Try This at Home, which is directly inspired by The Decline. Those of you who have heard that episode will know why. Those of you who haven't, what on earth are you doing? Finish this one first and then go backwards and listen to the Frank Turner one because it's great. And I also did True Trans Soul Rebel by Against Me because we spoke a little bit about Laura Jane Grace. Not enough because no one can ever speak about her quite enough. So that was fun. And my regular music-based comedy that I haven't done for ages. And it was nice to brush off the cobwebs.
Great.
How about yourself?
Oh, what have I been up to?
Yeah.
Oh, just like boring stuff, staying alive.
Just Bee Gees related boredom.
Yeah, basically, I've mostly been working on the agency that I operate, Fruitcake. We're looking at potentially signing another new act.
Oh, cool.
And I've run a couple gigs, but just the same old, the usual.
Well, let's put it this way. Last night, I was headlining a comedy gig and doing well at it. I'm not going to go so far as to say smashed, but that's for the people there to decide that I did that. But equally, this morning, I have visited 3 supermarkets before doing this. So I think the yang has definitely come knocking to tell the yin right off. So
is that so you visited 3 supermarkets? Is that like you scouting out deals?
Basically, I Aldi for everydays.
Yeah.
Tesco for the more specific vegan stuff. Your tofus and also your world foods like your gram flour. It goes into my homemade seitan. And Kapati, the Polish supermarket for various fruit teas.
That's clever, you see. That's we sometimes do a big shop at Aldi, but you realise 3/4 of the way around, you're like, they haven't got everything.
They don't. What they do have is precisely less so more and more, but is to go, well, this is precisely the amount that one should be paying for this product, and then you go to a bigger supermarket and you go, this is a stupid amount. Don't get me started on the fucking soy. Anyway, Morrison's basic UHT, no vitamins added whatsoever. That's 50p a litre. Aldi, their standard good stuff is 50p a litre. It's just, anyway.
Unbelievable.
So anyway, this is our cool punk rock podcast anyway. Let's flash back now to when we were really, really a lot more punk, possibly, in the eyes of the people listening. And we're going to be discussing Timmy the Turtle and a 2-track EP. Oh, 2 tracks, nice one. And then the very lazy Decline, which is a single track EP. Can you even credit
no
such
effort
an
put
idea?
in?
Oh, unless you got the 7-inch, which had Clams Have Feelings Too on the B-side, if I'm recalling correctly. I'm going to make a quick amendment to the content of this main body. I think I have put forward the idea that Baz the Frenchman, who orchestrated The Decline, did it as some sort of academic pursuit.
Yeah, that's what I thought was the case.
Yes, I saw an interview with him, and there aren't many, but it sounds like that was just something he did.
Oh.
He had no background in orchestration. He had no sort of real knowledge of it. He's a drummer primarily, and he did these vocal harmony collection things, these sort of a cappella, slightly barbershop-y medleys of NOFX, No Use for a Name, Rancid, Fat Records through the 90s, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And someone said, you ought to do The Decline. And he went, ooh, just voices for 18 minutes would be too much. And then he started thinking, and so that's how it came about. That's the origin story of that.
How interesting.
I was repeating something I'd heard and didn't bother checking, which is foolish. So apologies for that. But let's go and listen to that now, shall we?
Let's.
Cool. Kablamo! We've just burst in through the wall like a couple of superheroes.
Absolutely.
We're here to talk about our favourite superhero, Timmy the Turtle.
Just sort of smashed through the wall like Aerosmith in their shared video with Run DMC.
Yeah. And gone through there. But first, what we did was we looked at the wall in a very sassy way because some scratching happened.
The best bit about that video is when Steve Tyler goes to break his mic stand through the wall. He does a little twist on the spot first, as if it gives it more power. It reminds me of like wrestling, like where they do like a little move before they kick you in the face, as if that makes the kick stronger.
Oh, it looks like he's screwing his feet to the ground, like he's sort of planting himself for extra strength. Like, I think it's I imagine in wrestling, it's because they need to let the other person know they're about to kick them.
100%. Yeah.
I think it's a one of those ones where you've got to signpost everything because you are going to hit them, but they need to know they're going to be hit. as is my understanding of wrestling. Again, if we'd got Will Hodgson onto the subject of wrestling, we could have been here for 1,000 hours because Will was briefly a professional wrestler, the Wiltshire Wolfman.
A wolf them,
yeah. But yes, it was Wolfman, but I pronounced it Wolfman for some reason, as if it was a surname. But
it's brilliant.
Yeah. Of the Hampshire Wolfmans. Oh yes, absolutely. Good. So Timmy the Turtle.
Yeah.
Released in May 1999, but it was recorded as a part of So Long and Thanks for All the Shoes, those sessions.
Really?
So they were sat on this for 2 years, recorded in August 97. And yeah.
I mean, I can see, I enjoy this EP, but I can see why they didn't add it to So Long. I don't think these songs fit alongside So Long necessarily. No,
and also first off, if anyone is, some people might listen to this if we're covering a thing they might not have heard, they might go, well, I'll go and listen to that. You did listen to the right song, by the way, because it is not sung by anyone from NOFX. It's sung by Duncan from Snuff.
I was going to say, it's got to be a British singer.
Yes.
Because it's got like a turtle.
Timmy the Turtle. Yeah. Yes, it's Duncan from Snuff sings the lead vocal. I have no idea why. Fat Mike's certainly a big fan of Snuff. He gave them a lot of money to record an album because they'd split up. And he said, don't split up, record an album. Here's some money. And they went, yeah, we can do that. So if you're a Snuff fan and you think Fat Mike is a prick, well, give the devil his due. Or if you hate Snuff, then Fat Mike might be a prick. But, that's fine. I don't know why anyone would hate Snuff. They're great fun. But, yeah, so not much to be said about this one, really, is there?
I mean, I do think they are good songs. This EP reminds me a lot of the NOFX EP.
I was mainly talking about Timmy the Turtle, the song.
Sure.
Because I think the plan is a lot more to it. But
because of the two, I prefer Timmy the Turtle.
Really?
Which
okay,
I suppose takes us back to the NOFX,
which is exactly like NOFX now. I think about absolutely.
Yeah, because I much prefer We Are on Drugs.
Drugs are good.
Drugs are good. Sorry.
Are you thinking of Weezer?
I am. Yeah, We Are All on Drugs. Yeah.
That was a really boring song.
It's a really boring album. Make believe.
Oh, I don't know. I stopped after a while.
So did they.
Yeah.
But I didn't stop them releasing albums.
Yeah. No, it didn't. But it's a great shame. Poor Weezer. So this was just a 9,499 copies on green vinyl. So it wasn't really a proper release. I'm not even doing air quotes. I'm saying I'm doing air quotes. But so this was another one of those punk releases. Just one of those. We'll put out just under 10,000 copies and see what, so it turns into a thing. You can hear it on 45 or 46 songs. And it's just about the guy. He used to play in a band called The Grimm, and he used to count people. He used to stand there with a clicker, counting people in at the concerts so that promoters couldn't claim there were fewer people in.
Yeah.
That's the story there. You can actually hear Timmy the Turtle on theme from a NOFX album on the next full length recording. Because right at the end when they're all joining in, you can hear he goes, "I'm Timmy the Turtle. He counts and he clicks."
Fair enough.
So he's got all his little clicker, and you can see on the artwork there's a little sort of cartoon turtle who looks sort of quite dozy, but he's got a little person clicker, like a little counter like bouncers have at nightclubs and stuff.
Yeah, and I think I really enjoy the album artwork. It sort of reminds me of the Longest Line artwork they did.
Yeah, a little bit.
But colorized.
So, and then we've got The Plan.
Yeah, a bit of a nothing song for me. Like, I think it's good, and I think it's got some very good harmonies on it.
The harmonies are what really sell it to me.
Yes.
I like that a lot. It's a sort of, I mean, it says in the opening line, "Call us libertarian because we do as we please." It seems to be a sort of one of those sort of slightly more left-wing libertarian left-wing, what's the word? Interpretations of libertarianism, but it's sort of the idea of just leave everyone alone and it'll all be fine, kind of thing, which is hard to argue on paper, I guess. So, so it's a little. I mean, the lyrics are a little drab and preachy, but I like the music a lot.
Yeah,
I think this one sounds more like "So Long and Thanks for All the Shoes" than Timmy the Turtle does, but still doesn't. I have problems with this because for me, "So Long, Thanks for All the Shoes" is so set in stone. Any variation to it is anathema. So I can't really objectively say whether I think it would fit on the album or not. But my initial feeling is not really.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think "So Long" is possibly NOFX's most unique sounding album. I know we've spoken about this in a recent episode, but like it's got such a specific sound in terms of, we spoke about how trebly it is, not much low end, and I don't think any of their other albums sound like that, and I don't think that these songs do either.
No, the production does sound different. It says it was recorded for the same sessions, and sort of, well, okay, and then something I don't know whether they recorded them but didn't complete them and they completed them later, because it just says when they were recorded rather than when they were like produced and stuff. So they might have been sitting around for a little while, and I don't know. It's possible, but there we go. For the sake of completion, we've done that. It's the entire thing is 4 minutes and 38 seconds for the EP. Three of those minutes are going to The Plan, and the rest are Timmy the Turtle. So yeah, I mean, I think if they'd called this EP The Plan and had that as side one, it would seem more like a sort of statement.
Yeah,
because it's sort of a kind of a political song or a sort of social commentary kind of song. It might have seemed, but having that as the B-side to a sort of fairly silly song about a mate of theirs. I don't know. I'm trying to milk more than 2 minutes of material out of this, and they didn't. So why should we? So, so I suppose now we've whetted your appetite. We're going to go for a little word from our sponsor. This is Audible. No, we don't have any of those.
It's a good Audible as well.
Yeah, I hear stuff and I can say it back again. My girlfriend's so lucky. I do spend an inordinate amount of time just describing things as if I were Christopher Lee on an interview about things. We watched an interview or a thing where Christopher Lee was talking about old films. He's looking back on his career, and there's a bit where he just says, "And here in my hand, you'll see I'm holding what I'm reliably informed is the last remaining piece of the Wicker Man." And I just love it because he puts the emphasis on man instead of wicker. It's just on the Wicker Man. It really makes me laugh.
Like how Matt Berry says Kit Kat in Mighty Boosh. A Kit Kat.
Yeah, that kind of, yeah, it's like that. So that's why I sort of say to my girlfriend, "Would you like a cup of tea?"
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. So anyway, yes. So the decline. We get finally to talk about the decline. Oh, it's big, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm really excited that we're doing an episode on the decline. I'm sure some listeners like this will be one of the ones they've been waiting for because I think it is quite close to a lot of NOFX fans' hearts.
It was a really interesting thing because you find out it was announced in Kerrang and all the other a lot of the other music things, and it's like NOFX are releasing an EP that is one song that is 18 minutes long.
Mm-hmm. And
people were like, my attention is got. Let's have a listen. And I think the surprising thing is how consistent it is and how there's not really any fat on it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a really, really impressive composition. And, you know, it's taken me the research for this episode to, like, truly appreciate it. Because, you know, of course I've listened to it before, but it's one of those things where, like, you know, to listen to it, you really do need to set aside 18 minutes. Like, so, you know, it's not a thing that I've done a lot in the past. But obviously in the last week, I've listened to it quite a bit. And before doing this research, if you would have asked me what do I consider to be the greatest composition in punk rock, I would have probably said May 16 by Lagwagon. I think it's phenomenally put together. I just think it's a really impressive piece of music. But now, following my research, I would say without a doubt it would be The Decline.
It's really something, and it has sort of motifs that come back a little bit, but that nothing's fully repeated.
Yeah,
like a symphony, like
a lot of NOFX songs. You know, like we've spoken about. Like Linoleum is obviously like, you know, there's no fat on that. There's no repeats there really, but it never sounds out of place. And I think this is where like Fat Mike's songwriting really comes into its own, because like he is capable of writing songs that sound like they should sound, but also, you know, there's no repeats, there's no chorus really.
The closest you get is the trombone refrain, which is more sort of a weird sort of fanfare, I suppose.
Well, it reminds me a lot of, is it Mattersville? We will grow old together.
Huh. I hadn't even put that together. It does have that, yeah.
When I get The Decline stuck in my head, I actually get Mattersville stuck in my head because it's the trombone that I remember, and it's the similar melody line.
Now everyone will. That's a wild catch. I hadn't even thought of that, and it really does. I can see exactly where you're coming from with that. That hadn't occurred to me at all. But yeah,
And
that's great.
it's like Mattersville would come later, so I wonder if,
Mm.
like they were writing the decline, they're like, that's a really good melody line. We should use that again sometime.
I don't know if it would have been that conscious.
Yeah.
I think possibly it's possible that it was like, and then would be thinking, well, I can't think of the words that would go with that, so I can't have already written. Maybe I don't know. It's interesting. It was Lars Nylander of Skankin' Pickle played the trombone on that because at the time Hefe didn't play the trombone.
Yeah, because didn't they just buy him one to see if he could play it, and he could?
Yes, I think it was on the Gotten Worse live where because they do it with beat and different drum, and he plays it on that, on the sort of the slow, the sort of the ska version that then goes punk rock. And I think Mike says, we said, Hefe, can you play the trombone? He goes, I don't know, I've never tried. So we bought him one and he can play it just fine. But he plays the valve trombone, not the slide trombone. So it's a bit more, it operates like a trumpet rather than as we might imagine a trombone to play. So maybe if it had been a slide version, he'd have probably learnt it fine anyway. But he was able to pick it up straight away because it's very similar to the trumpet. But it's still very, very cool.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there's so it's 18 minutes. It was released just on a single. It was an EP because it was too long to be a single, essentially. And also, NOFX don't really release singles; they like EPs because they're punk. So it was recorded in June of 1999, released in November of 1999, and I don't think it was. Oh yes, that's right. The CD has one song, and then the vinyl includes the B-side of Clams Have Feelings Too from Pump Up the Vallum.
Okay.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that to me is a head scratcher, but absolutely fine. The first 155 7-inches were pressed on clear vinyl. Just because.
So those are probably worth quite
a
bit these days.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It says this version is no longer available. I guessed. I remember when some friends of mine bought the EP, and we were visiting their house on the way to someone else's house, and there was a real dilemma because people were like, "Oh, we've got to go to the other house because someone's scored some really sweet hash. We got to go over there and pick out the plastic bags before we can do a bucket of it." And we go, all right then. And then they go, oh, we were just going to listen to the new NOFX song. It's 18 minutes long. And I remember just going, do I just follow on later or do I? And in the end, peer pressure got to me, and I only heard the hi-hat and the first couple of jing-jings.
Sure.
And say something which I did later go on to regret not listening to NOFX's decline. So he was more of a metal guy, Chris Lee, to be fair, wasn't he? But anyway, it took me a little while until I got my own. Did I get my own? Yeah, someone put it on a mini disc for me. It was 1999. Everyone, come on! Don't hate the game, not the player. So that was very very, very interesting. What sort of bits were the bits that stuck out for you initially?
I mean, obviously, the trombone that reappears a few times. I think on the first time I heard it, I was like, oh, so it's kind of like 4 songs put together. But then, like, as I listen to it more and more, I see how they fit together, and I do think it's a lot more special than, oh, we've written 4 songs that aren't quite full songs. Let's put them together in one big song. But I don't really think that anymore.
No, I mean, I think, and I'm half remembering this from the Krista Makes a podcast, where he has a 2-hour conversation. Well, no, he has a 1 hour 50-minute conversation with Mike about this, and then 10 minutes where he has to bring him back from the subject of how great pegging is. And he does. Do you know what Krista Makes? I'm going to say this: absolute fucking pro. Because Mike's just there going, anyway, getting pegged is brilliant. He goes, yeah, well, certainly I don't really know about that, but I do know that this next section of the decline is great. I'm like, oh mate, you could have been a broadcaster if Less Than Jake had never done a thing. You oh wow, that's pretty great. But he does know Mike quite well, so I imagine everyone who knows Mike quite well does have sort of steering him away from bondage talk techniques. You've always got that friend who wants to talk about what they want to talk about, which is why we started this podcast. I haven't spoken to NOFX about anyone for ages. Just on this podcast, it's a really, really helpful. I'm feeling better. I'm sleeping better. It's so good. Anyway, but yeah, that's I think that from that podcast, he was saying, or Mike was saying, that he sort of had pieces that weren't full songs yet, that he thought, I'm going to put this. So they weren't like full songs and then we just smash that into the back of that. It was more without wanting to invoke the name Woody Allen too much. Woody Allen had this technique where anytime he thought of something that was funny, he'd write it down on just like a strip of paper and put it in a drawer. And then after a certain amount of time, he'd go to that drawer, pull out all the strips of paper, dump them on his desk, and like try and arrange them and link all of these things together. And that was how he did his early stand-up routines and stuff. Which is the only Woody Allen approved technique I would ever recommend anyone try. But it did produce like the Moose routine and stuff like that. And so, and so it feels like that's the sort of approach that this was taken, because you get all the pieces, but then when working on linking them together, because I'm sure you found this with stand-up and stuff, you want to link from one piece you've got, 1 2-minute, 4-minute piece into another one. And then you find that you actually develop another 2 minutes out of linking the two pieces and stuff. And so I think that's how some of this worked.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it wasn't, but I'd be happy to hear otherwise. So it's sort of, there's a lot that goes on, and there's a lot of very sort of complex things, particularly with rhythms and different guitar parts. It's very, very bass heavy, this composition, isn't it?
Which I was going to say is like, it's very strikingly a new direction from So Long, because I think that musically, and particularly on like the production side, this sounds more in line with Pump Up the Vallum, Wolf in Wolf's Clothing, than it does albums that precede this.
I think the guitars have got less gain in them. They're not as overdriven. They're far from clean, but they're just that little. There's a little more clarity to the guitars. There's a lot more sort of distortion on the bass in certain parts.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, the bass on So Long is so clean you could eat your dinner off of it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
so sparkly, spanky.
It almost sounds like a. I mean, it doesn't sound like this, but it's in the realm of like how the bass in Korn sounds. How like you can't hear the notes, you can just hear the strings jangling.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Thankfully, it retains enough clarity, because it's not down tuned. Half an octave, so it does retain enough clarity that you can actually hear the melodic aspect of it. But yeah, there is, it does get that way. Whereas some of this on the decline, some of the tone sounds like some of Matt Freeman's grittier bass parts and stuff like that, which I'm all for The only drawback I've found in my limited band experience is distorted bass disappears in the mix.
Yeah.
You can't. It just turns into more guitar.
It's why like a lot of bands that do use or some bands that use distorted basses tend to be like bass and drum duos, like Royal Blood or Death from Above.
You can totally get away with it if it's just that. But there's oh gosh, which one is it? There's a song on The Real Thing by Faith No More,
mm-hmm.
and it's really, I quite like it, but it's really annoying because there's a bit where Mike Patton rhymes baby with baby. Hey, look at me, baby. I'm just a little baby. And even he sounds slightly reticent to say it, but the reason I'm meant to bring it up is that it just goes to just the bass, just super heavy, like really like transistor overdriven solid state amp. It's really it's very of its time. Like the production is very clearly from then, but like as soon as the mix comes in, you just lose it. And this manages to keep the clarity. Apparently, Mike played most of the guitars on this as well.
Yeah, and I'm guessing like that. I know he said it, so it's probably maybe true. But like, I'm guessing on all of like the album inlay and all of that, it suggests otherwise.
Well, Melvin and Hefe did play guitar on it, just not all of it. Like I think Hefe played. There's a guitar solo or two on there. The wah wah solo. Hefe played that. I think he played some other stuff. Melvin played probably some of the octave chord stuff. So they did play on it, but like all of the palm muting stuff was done by Mike, and various other things. But he did say that it was mainly him and Smelly who recorded this. And then
it's interesting because I think this is some of like the best guitar sounding stuff we've heard from NOFX up until this point. And
yes, it's a little surprise, isn't it? It's weird to hear, but like I say, Hefe and Melvin did play guitar on this. They both sang on it. Hefe didn't sing any of the harmonies, but he does have his little bit. Wish I had a shilling, all that stuff. And there's a lot of male yell on this. The most male yell we've had.
Yeah.
It's like the beginning of like it turns up on So Long.
Yep.
And maybe a little before it here and there, but it's sort of like with I'm telling Tim, we've got Someone's Watching and stuff like that. All of that great stuff. That's all really, really cool. But this one, Melvin is the last person to be singing on this. He's shouting that we are the queer, we are the whore, we are, and all this stuff. Yeah. Really, really leaning heavy. And it's all the better for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like they all get so much to do, which is, it's why it's so much fun to see them play it live. Like, because, there's just, it feels, I don't know, like one of the most complete and interesting things they've made.
Yeah. It is. It really is. It's a very interesting sort of approach. And it was, I think it was sort of the beginning of that thing where Mike's like, no one else had done it, so we wanted to do it.
Yeah.
It seems to be that thing where they just wanted to do something that no one else had done. And I mean, they were saying that there was the Subhumans had done a song that was like 16 minutes or something like that, and that was why they got the idea. Like, well, why can't we do that? So wanted to make. There's a little quote on the Wikipedia which I'm paraphrasing, but I'll just read it. According to Mike, recording this fuck was a total nightmare. Writing it was a total nightmare. I'm glad we did it, but I wouldn't do it again. We went back into the studio 3 different times and added stuff and remixed and remastered 4 times. It ain't no rock opera like Song Remains the Same or nothing. We got the idea from Subhumans, not Rush. Why an 18-minute song? Just to do something different. We've done enough short songs. Time for a long one. Anyway, my advice, never try this song at home.
Great.
So yeah, there we go. That was from the NOFX official website, which no longer exists in that form. So that's good. But yeah, so yeah, Spike Slawson does the harmonies along with Melvin and Mike, and that's about it for the sort of the people on it, because it was done very, very particularly just by Smelly and Mike. So, I mean, do you have a? It seems a bit reductive, but do you have a favorite section of this?
I think there. I don't like. I'm gonna abstain from that because I think it's all interesting. I think that it has good moments throughout. It never gets to a point in the song and I'm like, all the good bits are over. Like,
yeah.
There's always something coming up that is good and works. Yeah, I like all of it really. I mean, like it starts so strong as well. I think it's got really good lyrics, and
yes.
I also think that this, following on from So Long, because I think it starts there, but Mike's bass playing is like so on point. I think it kind of starts with So Long and Thanks for All the Shoes, where he is just very clearly a very good bass player. But I think it also leaks into this. I mean, like some of the bass lines that start, a few of the sections are really interesting. And, and when he plays it live, he plays it note perfect. I mean, he's a deceptively good bass player.
Yes, absolutely. It's got the unusual triplet pattern that he plays. It's got the sort of what I call the RKL style thing, like that. That's pure Lil Chris from RKL. That's him really, really wanting to play that, and the timings and the stuff like that. I think it's interesting because there's sort of each movement, and I'm going to say that each movement in this does seem to go through a different theme.
Yeah,
because it starts off. There's little bits. The Christians love their guns, the church and NRA, and there's this. Well, it starts off, where are all the stupid people from?
Yeah.
And so it's sort of very, very fed up with society. There's sections on the prison system. A time in California is a $20 fine, whereas in Michigan or Detroit, you get 7 years for having a dime bag of weed, whereas in California it's like, hey, stop. It's and all of these things are really sort of super valid points that are being made. I think it's and then there's stuff about serotonin, because even in this, Mike is not above a pun. But yeah, the character of serotonin is someone who's shot in the head at a protest and stuff like that. When the serotonin's gone, then you're gone.
And I think they do a really good job of tying them all together with a single theme, because it does feel like a whole song. And like, I do think that even though you are right, like each section has a slightly different theme, I do think they all meet quite nicely beneath the theme of, I suppose, decline. Decline of a nation, decline of Western culture.
Yeah.
I do think thematically it all links together very nicely.
Yeah, there's gun violence. There's all of these things. It's sort of, looking at TV, and then stuff about one more pill to kill the pain, and all that kind of thing. It's it's a very it's a very depressing piece in many, many ways, because this was written before 9/11.
Oh wow.
This was released in '99. The decline had already begun in Mike's eyes before Clinton was president when this was released.
Mm.
Um, George W. Bush was. Wasn't he the former president's kid? Oh yeah, didn't he do badly in business once? Yeah. Oh well. What a funny story. And then, the story got less funny a couple of years later, and sort of, that thing of, it seems weird that someone was sort of to us, to people, I was 16 when 1999 ended. It seems really weird to have a sort of someone this upset with the state of US culture, society, pre 9/11, because it feels like a really post 9/11 vibe. This is
Yeah.
from, and take into account my age, I hadn't been around for that long before, all of these things. So it's sort of, I think it's a very interesting approach, but there's the musicality of this, I don't think I could ever tire of. There's little bits that don't show up in other NOFX songs. Like we don't have that little tremolo,
Yeah.
those kind of things. It's got some really interesting little bits in the background with the sort of the bass line behind Hefe's bit, and and that very long fade out where it sort of gets gradually more and more MIDI, like more like you're listening to it on a telephone. And you'll like this. The marching sound, they took that from the beginning of Holidays in the Sun.
No way.
And then just changed the speed a little bit to get it to the right. Yeah, so right at the beginning.
I've always said the marching sound at the start of Holiday in the Sun, it like, how did they like, it sounds so good. Like the march, like it.
I've no idea. It probably was a sample.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if the version of Nevermind the Bollocks that I've heard is a re-release, because whenever I listen to Nevermind the Bollocks, I'm like, this is really well produced.
Oh no, it is. It's a really well produced album.
Mm.
But it's very, very simple. There's not a lot of overdubs or stuff like that. Although there is a theory. This is quite a fun theory. It's a fun theory that Steve Jones didn't play guitar on the album, and it was the guy who did all of the Wombles songs.
I've always, I think Steve Jones is arguably like the most talented member of the Sex Pistols. Like his guitar work is pretty good. And in fact, I saw him because he played Glastonbury this year with his new band Generation Sex, which is 2 members of Sex Pistols, 2 members of Generation X with Billy Idol.
Perfect.
It was a bit lame. It was a bit like, like when The Who sing My Generation and they sing the line, I hope I die before I get old.
Yeah.
It was a bit like that.
Hope I die before I get arrested. But I will point out for any of our non-UK listeners, The Wombles was a stop-motion animation kids show about a weird fictional breed of rodents who lived under Wimbledon Common in London, who took litter and made their house out of it. But they were also, embarrassingly enough for the UK, some people get very romantic about British music and, such a small island, they produce all the good stuff. The Wombles were the biggest selling singles artist of the 1970s.
I've not heard that before.
I believe so. I've been told this on many occasions.
Get them to headline Glastonbury.
The Wombles have legit played Glastonbury Festival. They've played live anyway. I think they did. Yeah. No.
Do they wear suits?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Straight up. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was Glastonbury. It was a big festival. I think it was Glastonbury. Don't fail me now. Memory.
Yeah, you are right. 2011.
Because if I'd have imagined that, then I'd have checked myself in somewhere. But yeah,
Surely they're just playing to a track. Surely you can't wear those outfits and play instruments.
I don't know. I wouldn't like to say, but
They've got a string section.
Yeah. Patrick Devine, a local Leeds comedy legend, saw them, went to see them, made a point of going to see them at Glastonbury. But he's precisely the age where the Wombles were on top of the pops, more often than some sex offenders. But they were massive. They had they had album after album. They were more successful as a band possibly than a TV show.
Wow. I mean, they're wearing gloves, but it does look like they are at least capable of playing their instruments.
Yeah, it's yep. So what we're saying is British music is an embarrassment, and the Sex Pistols were Wombles. So it's just a rumor. I'm not 100% certain, but it's. Do you know what? It's entirely possible, given the way the Sex Pistols were sort of made and operated. But we're here to talk about the decline. So live at Red Rocks in the amphitheatre. Well, I tell you what. Let's do a little nod to the other two versions. Did you check out the the band live version?
I watched the Baz's orchestra, like just the orchestra.
Okay, right. Okay, so yeah. Okay, well, the live one of just the band is really great. It's fantastic. Mm-hmm. It's just they were all on form, and it was just a very, very solid performance. Oh, I've seen them play the Decline live, and yeah, no notes. It was just super solid, and I think even when Mike's been particularly, but I think playing that one is always a joy. I know that it's Smelly's favourite to play.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, he loves it. Absolutely loves it. So, yep. And I think you can tell it's just great to watch him do it live. But so you watched Baz's orchestra version, yeah.
And then I watched them play with Baz's orchestra.
Okay, what were your feelings on Baz's orchestra?
It's it's so impressive, and I can see why they were blown away by it and why they got him involved in playing alongside them, because it is sort of like so flattering. I would imagine it's so flattering to them, because I think when he transposed it onto and made it playable for an orchestra, it's almost saying, well, this is real proper music,
it does legitimize
it musically,
this, and I think particularly if people have seen NOFX were good at writing songs and recording them, I think a little bit before they were good at playing live.
Yeah.
Which is where their reputation of, I heard they suck live and all the rest of it comes from. They've always been trying to catch up with their own vision and ability. I suppose every band is really, every band, when you pick up a guitar, you don't want to just learn your first couple of chords and go, happy with that, actually, I'll just stay there. Everyone wants to, and so this is where their abilities caught up with what they wanted to do. And I think that's why you get a very fertile period of NOFX, particularly in the next few albums. You've got Valum, you've got Errorism, and you've got Wolves, which are the next three major releases, which are definitely up there. You know what I mean? So I think, to have someone who, and like Baz is a fan of punk rock. If you've seen any of his other videos on YouTube, he's got a sort of vocal. They're not barbershop because it isn't that style, but like a vocal harmony 4-piece group that he's a part of that do medleys of NOFX songs, No Use for a Name. I think they do a Blink 182. All these vocal medleys that they just sort of blend together, harmonies and stuff like that. And what's nice is that I think he's from France or Belgium, I can't remember which, but they're all singing in English with these French accents, and it's very charming. But Yeah, so he's not only, and also my favorite bit, because I do have a favorite bit of the symphony one, or the Baz version, is when he stops conducting and plays that triplet bass solo on it's either the glockenspiel or the xylophone. I don't know
I
which,
think it's the xylophone.
but it's great.
Yeah.
It's so good. I'm like, that is wild. Yeah, I think it's really, really impressive, and yeah, it's the concentration on that guy's face as because when you're conducting an orchestra, you're literally telling them when to start and stop
Hmm.
each time they start and stop playing.
Yeah.
It's such a complex thing, and to do that for anything is wild, and to do it for something like this is just. But then there's like the tempo changes and stuff like that. Like the
Hmm.
first time the trombone refrain comes in, it's very, very slow and sort of calm, and he adds a lot more texture, and there's already a lot of texture in the original recording. But yeah, I think it's well worth checking out.
And
It's a really, really beautiful piece.
didn't when we had Robin Leach from Random Hand on the podcast,
Yes.
he said that supposedly during Baz's recording, he could only afford to record it once. Like he could only afford the orchestra for like one take, which is
Oh yeah.
probably why he is so concentrated.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it was also like his final piece
Yeah.
for some qualification, a degree or masters or something that he was getting.
Hmm.
It's like, I'm going to adapt this punk rock song into a fully fledged symphony, and I did wonder. I did when I first saw it, and I saw that like the pinned comment was someone or NoFX shared it somehow on social media. Like Mike was like, "This is incredible. I'm so moved by this. I'm really, really moved by it." And there is another version. There's a sort of a secret version, not a secret, but there's
All
this
right.
weird version of NoFX having the orchestra play it, and then they watch the whole thing from the side, and then they come on right at the end to join in with that final da 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 bit, and that's when the drums kick in and they all start playing. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. They've done that, and then they announced that they were doing the whole thing together, like a full on Metallica S&M style. And I
Yeah.
was like, I could just tell it. You knew it was going to happen when you watch it. You're like, there's no way they're not getting this to happen together because it's just so good.
Yeah. And I would have imagined when it was announced at the time, like it, like that's if you were capable of going, you would have wanted to, because it would be such a special NoFX gig, like to hear that song in
Oh,
full with
absolutely.
an orchestra live.
Yeah, no two ways about it. So, so which brings us on to, um, I don't know whether it's the definitive one. I think the good thing about The Decline is that there isn't a definitive one.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't want to choose it because that would mean lowering the other ones in our estimations. Hello everyone, Eddie here. Red and I hope you're enjoying our show. If you have been and would like to help us make it a little more easily, then you can donate to us at our Ko-fi page, which is ko-fi.com/punkrockelite, or you can look in the show notes for our link tree. If you can't help us financially, we totally understand, but would love it if you spread the word to other people who would like this podcast. We thank you for your continued support. We massively appreciate it. Back to the show. The Decline live with Baz's orchestra.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Cool. Well, this has been it's wonderful, isn't it? It's I think I don't know. I'm not clever enough to know whether any of the orchestration was rewritten to accommodate having a four-piece band in there.
Yeah,
You know what I
that
mean?
would be interesting to know.
Yeah, because there are some bits, that float over the top of others. There's little stabs from the orchestra here and there. So I don't know whether the orchestra does a little bit less or whether I don't know.
Well, I think they do because in the original version, they have like the string section largely play the vocal melody line, which I don't think that they do in this version.
Right, yes, that would make a lot of sense.
And I don't think they have a full percussion section in this bit. I think it's slightly smaller orchestration.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting. I think also I noticed in the credits it says that Karina Denike, drink everyone. She played like a sort of a double bass part, but on the keyboard.
Right, yeah.
So she's there. She's not singing, which I consider to be a waste, but we won't go into that. But she's actually playing one of the orchestral parts on the keyboard. I don't know how that came about, whether they went, let's give her something to do, or they went, oh, well, you could play that. We don't need this extra whatever it is. I don't know.
And I do think that she's quite hidden away in the video. Like, I think I only noticed that she was there on like my second viewing of the live version with the orchestra. And, you know, I would like a little bit more Karina in this.
Of course. But that's really the only notes I have. The whole thing is really fantastic. I mean, they do some things. There are little changes that work brilliantly. For example, after the first triplet rolls that Fat Mike plays on the bass, then there's a few bars of sort of silence, and then Baz plays the percussive version on the xylophone.
And I think there's only a couple bars of silence so that he has time to run over to the xylophone.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. No, that's entirely why. But then Mike doesn't play the triplets as he's singing the next bit because it's being taken care of by the xylophone and things like that. You know, Hefe doesn't play the trombone on this one, I don't believe.
He plays trumpet briefly.
Oh, does he? Oh, okay.
It was quite funny because I'm like, you don't need to do that, man. You've got like a
maybe he wanted to play with the orchestra, in which case, you know, why not? You know, you can tick that one off. So yeah, and there's some bits where, and also like the first or it might be the second instance of when the trombone comes back in, everything drops and it just has a bed of shimmering strings with, and then the drums sort of after a couple of rounds of that, the drums roll in and then it starts again, and I love that they have. I was saying, I wonder if there've been any changes. I've just listed loads of them that I knew. I hope what I meant came across. But yeah, those adaptations to make it what it is, and for a band who, I mean, they said initially they'd never play The Decline live, and then they went, well, why shouldn't we? They went, you know, they did that Lord of the Rings meme with Bilbo looking at the ring, going, why not? After all. You know, that kind of thing. I'm like, well, let's play it live because that's a stupid thing to do. So let's do it. And it's like, it's not stupid. It's fucking inspired. It's amazing that they do that live, and they must have played it, you know, hundreds of times. And so to then play it with these changes, that must have been, because not to say they go on autopilot, but when you know how a song goes, you carry on playing it, I suppose. Maybe that's it. But yeah, I think it's I think it's a really, really wonderful achievement to have done a really organic S&M style thing, because, you know, Metallica did S&M, which I think was around the time that The Decline was first released. It was like very late 90s. You know, it was a guy who did a lot of film composing. He did the string arrangement for Nothing Else Matters and stuff like that. And I think S&M by Metallica is a really great thing. I really, really like it. I think it's one of my favorite Metallica things. And then a few years later, Kiss did it and decided that they'd invented it.
Sure.
And that was largely shit. The Melbourne Philharmonic or whoever it was, they were all of course they're very good. They're a major city's philharmonic orchestra. They're not going to be shit, but it felt a little bit thrown together. They were more interested in the fact that all of the orchestra were wearing Kiss makeup rather than anything else. It was a bit, to say that Kiss did something gimmicky. I was about to say the most redundant thing that's ever been said on a music podcast. But anyway, all that kind of stuff. And different bands have done stuff with orchestras, in the past. Cypress Hill on The Simpsons, all that kind of stuff. But this one felt like it was a very organic thing, because it wasn't like they'd sat around going, what can we do? Plotting. How can we make this song relevant or whatever? It literally took someone who went, I'm going to turn that into a full orchestrated symphony. And then they went, whoa, that's cool. And then they got to know the guy. I think he lived at Mike's house for a bit. He works with him as one of the decomposers.
That makes sense.
And all the rest of it. And then they're like, oh, shit, why don't we do a full band and orchestra version? It feels... And it doesn't feel rushed, because it didn't happen like the week after.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been done properly. And I think it's a massive, massive achievement.
One of my favorite bits of this is how involved Baz is in the live version, and how much NoFX are clearly happy to give him free reign. Like he's not over in a corner conducting an orchestra.
Yeah,
he's running all over. He briefly plays a bit of cymbals, I believe, on Smelly's drum kit.
Yes,
and there are some really fun moments where he has to come in front of the band so that he can conduct them all to start together. So like the orchestra and NoFX.
And NoFX, yeah.
And he's having so much fun,
isn't he? It's infectious. It's watching it is the preferred delivery system, because I was listening to it on headphones while I was doing various things, running. But it's quite good, because no matter how long it takes, you never run out of stuff to listen to. So and so you do miss out on that. But even just on the audio alone, just on that, it really doesn't get much better. And it even starts off with some of the bants. Does Bad Religion have a bassoon?
Yeah.
The answer is no.
And it ends on a really lovely joke with okay, we've got one more song. This one's called "Fuck the Kids," which is obviously a 6-second song.
Yeah.
Fuck the kids. Fuck the kids. Okay, good night.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame that Baz didn't orchestrate that. But
yes.
So close yet so far.
I also think it's a really cool choice of venue, because when I was watching the video, I was like, oh, holy shit, is that Red Rocks? Because I'm vaguely familiar with Red Rocks Amphitheatre because a couple of stand-ups have filmed their special there.
Oh, cool.
Bill Burr did one of his most recent ones there, and
Okay.
Brian Regan, who is a great stand-up that not a lot of people over in the UK know, but he is massive in the US. And if you want a little recommendation, if you go and watch Brian Regan's walkie-talkie bit on YouTube, I think it's one of the greatest bits of stand-up ever written.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Brian Regan walkie-talkie. Type it in, have some fun.
There's your recommendation for some fun. Cool.
But I wouldn't recommend watching his special from Red Rocks or Bill Burr's special from Red Rocks. It just happens to be, in my opinion, their worst special.
Oh, their least special specials, but but in the most appealing location.
Great venue, like a beautiful venue and location. And whatever team is running that as a live event space has absolutely smashed it. It's really well lit. It sounds amazing, and it's just such a cool location.
Amazing. Well, I'm delighted to hear that. That's a good thing. I mean, I think was it Ali Bryce who suggested giving someone the decline, and if they don't like that, then they might as well not bother.
You know, and I think he's really onto something, and I think a couple of our other guests have suggested the same. But
That's true, yeah.
you know,
I might be misquoting Ali. I can't remember. I get
no,
the
he
feeling it was
definitely.
Ali. Oh, okay, cool.
I think he definitely did, because I know that he did that to one of his workmates, didn't he? He sat them
he
down
did.
with
Yes,
a set
you're
of
right.
headphones.
That's the story I'm half remembering. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I think it's a great idea, because I do think that the decline, it it doesn't feel like a departure from what NoFX do. It feels very much like an example of the entire body of their work. You know, like it. So I suppose aside from like there isn't really like a ska reggae bit in it, which I guess is a shame.
Maybe, but I don't know, because it doesn't. There's that sort of little jaunty bit.
Yes.
Nobody ever asked, does anybody learning from the past?
Yeah.
Which sort of shows that sort of more Herb Alberty kind of, I don't want to say easy listening, but sort of,
Well, it's almost all out angst, sort of NoFX, I guess.
But it's got a bounce to it. It's not. I wouldn't call it ska, but there's something to it. There's slower bits. I think Krista Makes referred to those bits as the Beatles parts, which is and with certainly with the harmonies and the backing vocals and stuff in that, there's a sort of a Beach Boys Beatles thing going on in there, definitely. And I think that it's very difficult to dismiss NoFX as the sort of fratty Blink-182-esque, don't they just do songs about wanking and doing a big shit? I mean, it's really, I don't know that NoFX have ever done a song like that, really, or like loads of them, but for some reason they do get lumped in, and I think it's the onstage banter. I think it's the fact they, a lot of songs about lesbians and stuff like that, and I think when you have a song with a couple of puns here and there, but it's sort of wordplay rather than joke puns, I suppose. Very serious subject matter, very direct and blunt lyrically, and musically so ambitious.
Yeah.
I think that anyone who dismisses them as aren't they just,
Yeah.
there's not. I don't think you can. I think if you answered that with the decline, they'd have a very difficult job. I'm sure some debate bro would love to, talk about that, because that's not what debates are. But it's almost a redemptive action in a way. Not that I think they needed redeeming, but
well, it's has a band this silly ever felt this serious? I don't know. Like, there's something we mentioned earlier about how this song was like legitimized by there being like an orchestral version, but I think in a lot of ways the song itself legitimizes NoFX as a serious force to be reckoned with.
Yes, and I would argue that no one needs to do that.
Yeah.
If people are buying your records for generally for whatever reason, broadly speaking, there's a couple of reasons, maybe not, but generally speaking, if people are buying your records and attending your shows and buying your t-shirts and all the rest of it, that's all the legitimization you need. But I think NoFX are very divisive. Lots of people can't stand NoFX, and I think that's got worse. That's got more intense recently, because it used to be they didn't do interviews throughout most of the 90s, and since punk voter George Bush, they're wanting to get George Bush voted out, all that stuff, they broke that, or Mike broke that, to talk about that. And he's someone, he says that he never lies. He's like, I can't lie. I just don't. I'm always honest.
Mm-hmm.
And normally I find people who go, I'm just honest, mate. I just say how I find it. That's it. I'm just straight up. I don't lie. I normally find those people interminable, because it just basically means, well, no, I don't lie. It's like, yeah, well, you don't have to lie, but you don't have to say what you think in such an abrasive and unpleasant way when that wasn't entirely called for. Do you
I
know what
think
I mean?
there's a big difference between rudeness and honesty.
Oh, there is, yeah. Well, the thing is, you can lie very rudely.
Yeah.
Rudeness does not. Yeah, exactly. And so some people, it's that thing of someone will just go, mate, that was dog shit. Well, cheers. Like, whoa, I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest. You'll never grow if you're not honest. It's like, well, no, you'll never grow if you're not told how to. So tell me how that could have been better. Or by not being shit. Like, okay, cool. Yeah, you're right. Are you an entrepreneur? You sound like one. You're amazing. You get that kind of bullshit. And I think he's sort of, he says stuff like that. Oh, that band wasn't very good. That band had 2 good songs. That record was bad. Stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. And what he means is, I think that, but he says it as fact, which is
Sure.
very irritating, I find. But if you learn to decode that as, I don't like that, you go, well, fine then. You don't have to. Whatever. But again, to say that NOFX aren't a legitimate thing when faced with the decline, I don't know if it was written with that in mind. It seems to have just been a little personal challenge.
Yeah.
But equally, if it was done to, in some way, alleviate these kind of accusations,
I think it's
he could have done a lot worse, couldn't he?
absolutely. I think it's kind of been made to diversify their output, criticism of a lot of similar punk bands, but I don't think necessarily NoFX is that, it's all the same, album to album, it feels the same. It feels like they're just retreading what they've done before.
Yeah.
But this is such a departure from anything they've done previously, but also sounds, great alongside all of their other work.
It does. It makes sense. And again, taking a discography as a series of albums or releases, it's really weird that the band that started the 90s with Ribbed pretty much ends the 90s with The Decline.
Yeah, really interesting.
Isn't that
what a journey?
Yeah, you're like, wow, how did that happen? And it's an incredible thing, because if you take a 10-year period of time, how radically different are other bands that people compare them to? Blink-182, I'm just pulling out of the air for no particular reason, but I mean, over 10 years, did they end up with a different? They ended up with a different member, maybe. I'm not sure though.
Also, So Long and Thanks for All the Shoes ends on a secret track, which is, Howard Stern insulting them. NoFX, No Talent is the name of this band.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is almost a fuck you to Howard, because there's you cannot make this track without talent. I mean, it's
I wouldn't like to say for definite either way, but it could be a cumulative effect that was not necessarily conscious. We're getting into some real psychobabble here right now. This is all armchair speculation, but that is what we have set our stall out on, so we're going to continue with it. But it's very, very possible that upon hearing people, because by this point they're making a very nice living.
Yep.
They are comfortable people with families. Some of them
2 big albums as well. At this point.
Big albums. They've got families. They've been touring all over the place. They'll have toured Japan, Europe, the UK, US, Canada, by this point they've done tons of stuff. They've, Fat Mike's definition of success. They're doing what they want to do with their friends, and they can all afford to not have day jobs whilst doing it.
Yeah.
Like, ding ding, we have a winner. And to be constantly sort of dismissed as, oh, well, Bad Religion took pity on them, so gave them a record deal, or, oh, they're the the non-thinking man's punk band or something like that. They don't have the sort of the street cred of a Rancid. They don't have the intellectual reputation of Bad Religion. They don't have the virtuosity of a Lagwagon, and all this kind of thing. And I don't think they hold any ill will towards any of those bands, because they're all their friends. But it must get a little disheartening to hear negative things about your band.
Yeah, but also they do court all of it themselves, by releasing albums called, I've heard they suck live, and
yes, well, the the fat guy who makes the fat guy jokes about himself first is never doing that because they're happy. You know what I mean? Maybe that. I don't know. Look, there's a lot of projection here going on. I could be entirely wrong, but I think it's interesting that after being initially a not very good band and then becoming a good band, they then, finish their second decade of being a band by doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty wild.
Absolutely. And I'd love to hear like people's experiences with this album. If anybody has any like big memories of it, or like their first impressions, or how they feel about it now. Like, I feel like this is one of the albums that people are going to be interested to hear this episode, because I think that it holds a special place in a lot of NOFX's fans' hearts. And I'd love to hear other people's experience of it and what they find about it.
Absolutely. Please do. punkrockelitepodcast@gmail.com. I'd be particularly interested to hear if there are any people who don't rate this song particularly highly.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we've encountered any. I've encountered people who don't like NOFX who don't like it.
Yeah.
But that's not interesting. Are you a NOFX fan who sort of goes, yeah, I don't know, they lost me a bit of Decline, but I came back for Pump Up the Volume. I'd love to know your reasonings on it. Yeah, we'll tell you what. Let's draw a line under it here. We'll bounce out to the outro, and we'll see you there in a minute. But this was, they've got theirs, I've got mine. This was The Decline. Outro time. Good talk. Do it up.
Great. Very good. And a Mark Maron impression. You're full of them today.
Nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely nothing wrong with it.
Nothing wrong with that. That is... The Decline could be talked about for a lot longer than we did, but we thought we'd spare you. Because, wow, there's a lot, eh?
Yeah, and like we covered all the different versions of The Decline as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think you could spend quite the afternoon indulging in The Decline, various YouTube videos. People have done different covers of it and stuff. There's one guy there's way more than one guy. He's gone The Decline cover acoustic, and it's just one person with a guitar for 18 minutes. And braver people than me can sit through that. I find it a bit much. Not that, no shade on anyone doing it, because I haven't and I couldn't. But yeah, it was something else. And yeah, so there you go. If you have any ideas, opinions, or what have you on The Decline, or Timmy the Turtle for that matter, let's not overlook that little hidden gem. punkrockelitepodcast@gmail.com.
Lovely.
Got anything coming up in the nears?
That is a great question. You know what? Next couple of weeks, it's all about. We've got a friend's wedding to go to. So there's a lot of stuff over the next couple of weeks that's all like, personal, not very much like work stuff going on.
Gotcha. So, yes, that's the thing. Weddings do take up the entire week because you've got to sort of say things like, well, need to do that now because we'll be in whatever town for the whole weekend and all that kind of stuff. So you're like, yeah, well, okay, so we're not going to be here on Friday because we're leaving at like lunchtime. That's basically the day written off. It's just such a punk podcast. I'm so pleased we're this cool.
But also, it's the Edinburgh Fringe Festival right now. So that means that my work generally is quite quiet this month because basically any agent or comedian that I want to contact to get them to do like some sort of like promotional work or something for my venue, they're all very busy doing the largest arts festival in the world. So bit of a quiet one for me.
Bit of a quiet. That's okay. That can't be bad. And you got a wedding to look forward to. Okay, cool. Well, we'll leave it there then. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We really do appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
See you soon, sir.
Thank you for listening to Punk Rock Elite. It was a Pick Scraped and Fruitcake co-production by Eddie French and Red Redmond. If you're not following us on Instagram or subscribed to the podcast, please do. The main theme and production was done by Eddie French. Please contact us at punkrockelitepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you.